message for me. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Want to welcome you as you are joining in. Drop us a hello in the chat would be great. And if you are catching us on the replay, make sure to use hashtag replay. We are now connected and streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So let me know what platform you're watching us from. Also, too, let me say that if you are watching us from Facebook, really important that you give StreamYard and Facebook permission to speak to each other. Otherwise, if you leave us a comment or ask a question in the chat, it's just going to say Facebook user. So if you will go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and if you've already done it on the device in which you're watching, you don't need to do it a second time. You should be good. But if you've never done that, or if you're new to us, just go ahead and go to streamyard.com/Facebook. And if you are new to me and I am new to you, my name is Beverly Smith, and I am the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm also the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm, so I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for, and I use that knowledge now to help senior level and executive professionals build their resumes, help them with their job search strategies, help them with their branding of their LinkedIn profiles, just all of that so that they can land the career of their dreams. So last week, if you joined us, we had another guest on. Her name is Ari Schaefer, and she was here, and we talked all about overcoming the challenges of age bias in the workplace. So if you missed that, it was a really good episode. Go back, lots of good information. Go back, and you can catch the replay of that on my YouTube channel, which is at Beverly Smith Resumes. This week, though, it is May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have another special guest. Bethany Wallace is returning to talk to us about promoting mental health in the workplace. And Bethany's been with us twice before back, and she talked to us back then about how to demonstrate your soft skills on your resume as well as in the job interview. So we actually did two separate episodes on those two topics, and it was back in November and jam-packed with a lot of great info. You can also go to my YouTube channel at Beverly Smith Resumes. Let me see if I can put that up. I think I have it here. And you can find it there. If you will go to the live tab, all the replays that we have done are there, and both of her episodes were in November, so you'll know where to look, and they were just really, really good. But let me tell you a little bit about Bethany before we jump in. Bethany Wallace partners with mission-minded organizations to build better workplaces through soft skill solutions, including soft skills training and train the trainer sessions for leaders. Bethany enjoys presenting at talent acquisition conferences for organizations, and she loves to guest on podcasts as well as webinars. So we're glad she's here with us today. She's also contributed to job boards and publications, including Higher Ed Jobs, Lenza, College Recruiter, Forbes, and Glassdoor. She's a published author and has 4 books. And additionally, she manages her own blog and podcast, which is devoted to gratitude. Bethany served in higher ed for 12 years and also gained experience in content management as well as nonprofit leadership. Bethany earned her Master's of Arts degree in English at Arkansas Tech University and her Bachelor of Arts at Lyon College. Bethany, welcome. So glad to have you back with us today.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be back. I'm happy to be talking with you today. Definitely happy to be talking about mental health in the workplace. It's a timely topic.
It really, really is. I think it's so important, too, that we as leaders learn how to cultivate a workplace environment, not only that nurtures productivity, which is kind of what we're tasked to do, but also we need to learn to prioritize mental health and the well-being of our employees. So I, too, am really looking forward to this topic. Um, so I'm curious, what are some of the reasons we're seeing mental health and well-being trending in today's workplace?
Well, I think there are lots of factors. One of those is just simply there's a greater need than there ever has been before. We're seeing higher prevalence of mental health issues and needs. That especially applies to Gen Z. For Gen Z, now we're seeing like unprecedented numbers of anxiety, depression, suicide, reported, feelings of like loneliness and things like that in the workplace. And a lot of that research came about after COVID. So I feel it's pretty accurate and takes into account the impact of COVID on people. And then, so that's another factor is COVID, because I think people went, especially people who were isolated or in areas with a lot of restrictions, they went through a really trying time, and probably a lot of people expressed feelings of isolation and loneliness. Then you add to that the fact that we asked people to work remotely or in hybrid settings during that time, on top of like not being able to gain facial recognition of emotions. And so
Yeah.
I think that people's soft skills atrophied, the amount of time they had to interact with each other decreased. And so all of that stuff combined has created a great need for mental health help and prevention and awareness. And so, and because of the greater need, I think we're also seeing greater awareness by leaders and especially by human resources. If you notice, like we used to always refer to human resources as either personnel or HR, and now it's sort of merged where in a lot of areas you're seeing people refer to it as people and culture. And I think that that's sort of a sign that the workplace is taking seriously. Leaders are understanding they need to take seriously the way that the workplace impacts people and how the health of their employees impacts the workplace.
Right, right. I think too, you don't, there's still a stigma around it, but maybe not quite like there was 5 or 10 years ago as well. I think more people are opening up and talking about their issues and at least raising their hand and saying, I'm having trouble here as well. And so I think that's probably a positive thing for helping everyone at least be aware and maybe start asking the right questions as to what we can do about the situation.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do you feel like employers are meeting the mental health needs in the workplace today?
Well, some better than others. There are a lot of employers are still in the more, I would say it like it's a rut of, we know people have problems. We don't really want to talk about it. Let's not talk to them about it. And then we can just pretend like it doesn't exist. That doesn't work, but there are a lot of employers who are still doing that. The employers who have figured out how to address things and be a little bit more transparent with their employees, offer employee assistance programs, benefits, and things, are kind of doing a little better with that. And I think just a lot of it is that transparency piece on the part of leaders to say, like, we know that this year has been really hard on you, or we know that because we've gone through a period of change management that a lot of people are feeling more stressed out. And so we want to address that in these ways, like maybe offer some sort of perk or an extra day off, or even if nothing else, just talking about it and addressing it, I think is a big improvement in a lot of workplaces.
Right.
And then also, being a little bit flexible with people. I'm seeing a lot more employers that are who are open to that. Where it used to be more like, unless your job absolutely necessitated you to work from home, that wasn't an option. Now employers are understanding, if I don't let this person work from home, I'm going to lose them because they need to be able to care for their child, or they need to have flexibility to care for an elderly parent, or they, for whatever reason, maybe they would need to travel with their spouse. So giving people a little more flexibility in how they do their job, I think is really helping a lot of employees to feel kind of heard and seen by their employer, and it decreases stress. And really, all of mental health just goes back to stress and stress management in the workplace setting. And so, on part of the employers, the only thing an employer can't solve all of your personal problems or make you have better personal relationships or anything like that, but an employer can reduce workplace stress. So the best employers, I think, right now are those who are doing things to reduce stress, like making sure the load isn't too heavy on anyone. If they start seeing signs of burnout, addressing it early on. So things of that nature, I think, are helpful. And there are employers who are doing that.
Right, right. I think it's a delicate balance too, because you have to be careful about how you address certain things. I mean, you've in a time now where we don't talk about anyone's medical situations or anything like that. There may be people that just flat out don't want to discuss it, don't want it known. So I think those are probably some of the challenges. And kind of going back to what I said, most leaders of teams, their priority is productivity. Their priority is the output. And, bottom line, if the company is not making money, then they need to do things different. But then, you and I know from the human resource standpoint, high turnover is going to affect your bottom line as well. And so doing some of the things that we can do that in some ways it almost feels a little bit like common sense, like let's just be kind to people and treat them with respect, and let's make sure that there's always going to be that person that will sign up for everything and take on way too much and end up a little bit out of balance. And then you've got those people that may be afraid to ask questions about their work, and that stresses them out too. So I think a lot of it too kind of reminds me of our previous discussion on soft skills, just having that emotional intelligence and that awareness to be able to handle and have those conversations in a professional manner that is helpful but non-threatening.
Yeah, and I think what I haven't really seen this that much yet, but maybe there are places who are doing this. But I think what it needs to evolve into is not the burden of mental health and mental well-being being placed on HR is probably needs to change, because I think that HR can only do so much. And so it's really as effective or more effective if you can train managers and leaders individually in different units and teams to be checking in on their people. And when they're going to be doing check-ins anyway, or one-on-one meetings or reviews. And so if they could build into that themselves a time when they talk about, like, how are you feeling about your workload? Or is there anything that you need to talk about how maybe like things outside of work are impacting work, and any ways we can help alleviate some of that stress. I think employers and leaders who will ask those kinds of questions, even if they're difficult, at least are opening the door for a conversation. And if the employee doesn't bite and they don't want to talk about it, then they won't talk about it. But I don't think that it's a bad idea for leaders to sort of step up and do a little bit of that themselves, so that it feels a little bit more personal to the employee, because sometimes HR, unfortunately, is removed from the day-to-day, involvement in the workplace, and they're sort of seen as this outside entity coming in. And so I think leaders on the ground have a little more impact.
Then they should probably have a little bit more trust with the people that are under them as well. I mean, just from that respect and trust and authority relationship, then, like you said, the HR is almost like an outsider coming in. So I had an interesting conversation Sunday after church with a young man, and it got me thinking about because he's fully remote, and the thing he said to me was, I really I don't have close relationships with the people I work with, because I am remote. And he said, I have to remind myself of that when I'm talking to them, that they don't misinterpret the things that I'm saying or things like that. And so I'm just curious, have you seen any reporting or feedback on the fully remote versus the hybrid model, or we're back in person, in mental health? I mean, because it seems it's almost kind of ironic. It's like we're going to let you work from home so you're not quite so stressed, but now you're kind of going back to being a little bit isolated from the team. So what are your thoughts there, Bethany?
Yeah, there is actually, I just was reviewing. I sometimes I write for Lenza, which is a job board, and the man who's a content manager, Brad Goodwin, recently published something himself on, and it was sort of reporting on some research about remote work and psychological safety and mental health. And so I'll just read you a couple of his statistics. There was a study by American Psychology Association 2023 called a Work in America survey. And they found that fewer remote workers are reporting toxic workplace than in-person workers, like almost a 10% difference. But that over a quarter of all workers, whether they're in-person, remote, or whatever, are reporting loneliness and isolation. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And there was another part of the survey where it said that remote workers tend to work more hours because there aren't set structures in place like clock in, clock out. When I show up, I start working. When I leave, I don't. And when you're working, especially in your own home and not just in like an office that you rent, but when you integrate work into your home, it's difficult to separate those two. And I've experienced that myself. And then also there was one statistic that said 50% of remote workers have reported feeling lonely at least weekly. So I think that, yeah, we're seeing the signs of that employers are going to have to try to find ways to keep people who work remotely engaged. Because while research also shows that if you work remotely, you're more productive and efficient, which I guess it's kind of like, which thing is going to cause a bigger problem long term? And I would argue that both of those things matter. But if you have someone who's working for you who's really stressed or feeling isolated and lonely, long term, they aren't going to be fulfilled in their role. So they'll probably look for something else and maybe
Right.
look for a way to be more engaged elsewhere.
Right, right. I still think there's a little bit of romanticism, so to speak, with the remote work. And people still are looking for that. But I think you're starting to see, obviously, you're reading more about businesses that are bringing people back in. And I don't know. I think I see a little bit, at least with my clients that I work with, it's kind of a little bit of half and half. Some, really are all about, I want to be remote, and that's why I want to make the change so that I can have the flexibility that I need. And then others are just like, no, I miss people and I want to be back in with people and I don't want the intrusion on my home life, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, and
So,
I think remote work is like it takes a certain kind of person to do remote work well and to enjoy it. Um,
mhm,
like I'm probably that person because I'm more introverted than extroverted. So it doesn't bother me to go for long periods of time without seeing people. I mean, I see my own two family members, but otherwise. Also, I don't mind being a little bit more proactive and taking the responsibility on myself of reaching out to friends, keeping in touch with people, um,
mhm,
finding ways to have meaningful connections that don't have anything to do with work. And I
mm,
think that that's one thing people can do if they are working remotely and they feel isolated or lonely is, you can't expect your employer to like try to provide engaging meetings or facilitate times for people to get on Zoom and talk to each other or something. But ultimately, if you want to work remotely, you kind of do need to take the ball in your own court and figure out, like, I need to put structures in place to keep myself accountable, to keep myself active, to maintain my personal relationships, and just find connection in other ways, whether it's like church or through volunteering or, you know, just having coffee with people, whatever it is that, you know, sort of fills that part of you. I think when you can do that, then working remotely doesn't feel as isolating. It's especially if you're introverted, then it's like you're getting your people time. And so working remotely is like, oh, good. Now I'm glad I get to come back here to my own little space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's kind of one of those unexpected things about remote work that we all didn't know was how much it would impact our feelings of like being part of something. And if we can't get it through work, we have to find it somewhere else because it's human nature. We need it. We're made to collaborate.
It's almost like I feel like it's twofold when it comes to bringing this back to mental health. There needs to be, employers need to promote that emotional intelligence, that the awareness, and just being aware and of how can we get the most and make, you know, our people feel good about being here and want to work for our company. I mean, because ultimately turnover is not good. And I think that's where, you know, bringing it back around as a business owner, you definitely, or if you're managing a large organization, those are costs that you need to have your eye on. So if you can be proactive in that way. But then secondly, on the other side, we have some responsibility too for ourselves to take care of our own mental health and our own situation, and develop that self-awareness enough to go, okay, I'm struggling and maybe I need to get help, whether it's seeking the guidance of a counselor, or some sort of holistic method or a medical method. But, you know, there is some, obviously you can't just say, well, I have a mental health issue and it's my employer's fault. Well, they might be part of the problem, but you're part of the solution. So
yeah, definitely.
So let's move on and talk about how can you share, or can you share some ways for us that each of us can prevent mental health crisis in the workplace? What are some things that we can do?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to just talk about this in the terms of like how we each can take on responsibility for our own mental health, because what employers can do and what we do for ourselves is different. But so as an individual, whether you're a job seeker or you have, you know, you're employed at the time, I think everybody has to take on that responsibility for their own and not expect things that are unreasonable from their employers. And like one of those is definitely finding places of connection outside of work. For one thing, that's really good prevention, because what happens if you lose your job? Then all of your personal, even if you work face to face, then all of your personal relationships and contentment about people interactions are tied up in that work, and then it's gone. So building like a broader network of people outside of work who can support you, encourage you, just have fun with you is really important. So maintaining connection to real people, I think, and also just thinking about your own health from every standpoint. Like, what am I doing to take care of myself physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, psychologically, emotionally, all of those components. Again, like that's something no one else can really do for us. We may have people who are intuitive enough and perceptive enough to say, hey, it looks like you're really stressed out right now. Or I've noticed you don't smile as much as you used to. But I mean, I think that's sort of, again, one of those things we can't fully expect other people to hold us to. We need to sort of hold ourselves accountable to standards of, have I had exercise today? Or have I at least stood up and moved around and then come back to my desk? Am I taking breaks, or am I just like driving myself to perfection, and becoming a workaholic and throwing more on me than anybody else is throwing on me?
Mm-hmm.
So I think kind of having that, whether it's like developing your own checklist every day of like asking myself, like writing down, like, what did I do today to take care of myself in these areas, can be helpful. And definitely, I think having some accountability, like I think mentorship is so valuable for so many reasons. And this is one of the reasons, because someone who doesn't work side by side with you, but someone who you still respect and admire, who can kind of check on you and kind of put some of those checks and balances in place to hold you accountable, is really helpful. It's been helpful to me. And I think whenever I'm considering like a job change, or I'm feeling like I need to address something at work, but I don't know how to address it, having a mentor alleviates a lot of that stress, and they can kind of help guide you down a healthier path. And then I think like taking full advantage of opportunities that your employer gives you, because a lot of employers give us opportunities to do things like take breaks, go take a walk, or take advantage of flexible working hours, or they offer employee assistance program benefits. But so many times we don't take advantage of those things, maybe because we feel like we're not that bad yet, or it's just a time, I'm just stressed right now and I'll get over it. And we sort of excuse a lot of our symptoms sometimes, that we are having a mental health crisis, or that our stress has become beyond the point where it's beneficial to us. It's not motivating us anymore, it's hurting us. So I think, taking advantage of some of those things, or asking for those things. Like, it's okay to just go to your employer, even if it isn't written in the policies and procedures handbook that you have the option to take a mental health day. Maybe go to your boss and say, I am feeling super stressed. I just feel like maybe I have too much on me, or like there's this change going on here, or maybe it's because of workplace dynamics with people you work with. Whatever it is, telling your supervisor, I feel like I need to take a break, it's better to say that and take a break than it is for it to end up causing you to blow up on other people, or causing you to start falling in sick because you've let your stress go to the point where it's affecting you physically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just being able to kind of maintain that awareness and practice some mindfulness is really helpful for everyone, no matter if you're the owner of a company or an entry-level person.
I think that's such good points, because it is, I think you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's like I just keep piling these things on me, and sometimes the stress is maybe not even it's internal, that we've brought upon ourselves. And so being aware of that. Also, too, I love the fact that, the suggestion to, go talk to your manager, go talk to whoever is above you, and just let them know. Some companies have a policy that if you're going to take a personal day, you need time notice, or you need a week notice or whatever. But if it's that bad, don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, this is not good. I need a break. And also, too, if they're aware of where you're struggling, they may be able to sit down with you and help you regroup and work things out in a way that it's going to be a more beneficial work environment for you as well.
Yeah. And I think, if we look at today's workplace, I think employers are struggling so much with retaining good people. If you're doing your job well and you come to a point where you are struggling and you need a break, I don't know very many of employers who are not going to work with you because they can't afford to lose the good people they have. And that is a lot different than it used to be. So I think not to take advantage of that, we shouldn't take advantage of that, but we should be aware that it really has changed, that the workplace has employers have become aware that they need to work harder to keep good people. And so if you're one of those good people and you are showing up and suiting up every day, then you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help when you need help.
Absolutely. 100%. Is there anything else you want to add?
I can't think of anything, but I can, I'll add some links to some of the articles I was referencing in comments after we post this. And maybe that way, if people want to read a little bit further.
That would be great. Yeah. So she'll come back and put those in the comments. And so if you're watching this live, come back and catch the replay. I don't see any questions or anything in the comments. But Bethany, where is the best place if somebody wants to reach out to you or
I think you froze up, but just in case you don't come back, I'll say probably LinkedIn is best for me because I'm on there almost daily. And I also have a website, which is bethanylawsco.com, but I don't live in that space. LinkedIn is a place more where I interact with other people. And you are welcome to message me if you have any questions about what we talked about or anything.
Very good. I put in the comments your website as well as your LinkedIn profile so people can connect. And also, too, Bethany's got a great YouTube page with a lot of great content that will be valuable to anyone in, wanting to grow on your soft skills. You've got all kinds of good stuff on there. So I'll put that YouTube channel there so people can go back and see some of the videos that you've done in the past. So, well, this has been great, and I really appreciate you coming on again. I hope you'll come back and join us soon. And for those of you that are joining us live, and if you're catching the replay, I just will remind you real quick that I do work with senior and executive level professionals. If you are looking to make a change, if you want to talk about LinkedIn branding, if you want to talk about how we can improve your resume, my team and I are happy to help you. And I have a link that I'm going to post in the comments for to link with me or to connect with me to schedule a complimentary consultation. So, and next week we will be back on Wednesday and we'll have a great episode for you. So look forward to seeing everyone again next week at 12:30 Central Time on our next live. Bye, everyone.